When I proposed to Zoe, I really believed we were building something solid. I'm not the impulsive type. I'm the guy who reads Yelp reviews before ordering lunch. I'd known Zoe for almost 3 years before popping the question, and I thought I knew what I was signing up for. She was passionate, spontaneous, a little scattered, sure. But I chalked it up to her creative energy, the way she called it. Over the course of our relationship, she jumped from wedding photography to dog walking to teaching yoga in a matter of months. None of it really stuck, but I figured not everyone's path is linear. I made good money in tech, enough to cover rent and most of the bills, and she contributed when she could. It wasn't perfect, but I wasn't looking for perfect. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment just outside Seattle, modest but cozy. She took the second room for her projects. It had been a photo editing space, a yoga corner, a candle-making studio, depending on the week. I rarely asked questions. She was quirky, not dishonest. Or so I thought. We'd been engaged for just under a year. Nothing fancy, a simple silver band, a Pinterest board full of wedding ideas, and a tentative spring date we hadn't sent invites for yet. Her parents had offered to split the venue deposit with mine. We were aiming for something intimate, rustic, full of DIY charm. But little things started to chip at the edges. Like how she'd vanish into her room for hours and come out glassy-eyed, saying she was editing client work, but I never saw a finished product. Or how she'd get moody when I asked about our budget, brushing it off with, "You're always so serious. Can't we just live in the moment?" Still, I didn't push too hard. I wanted to believe in us. Then one night, Zoe came home beaming, holding a bottle of wine and talking a mile a minute. Guess who's back in town? Mason. I must have blinked like an idiot because she added, "Mason, my best friend from college. He's gay. Don't worry." That's when I learned he needed a place to stay for just a few weeks while he got settled. I hesitated. I didn't like the idea of some guy, gay or not, crashing with us indefinitely. But Zoe gave me that look. The one that meant she'd already decided and was just offering me the illusion of choice. "He's been there for me through everything," she said. "He even helped me through my miscarriage before I met you." That line landed like a punch to the gut. I didn't know she'd ever been pregnant, let alone lost a baby. She said it so casually, like she was dropping the weather report. I tried to ask more when, how, who, but she brushed it off. Said it wasn't something she liked to talk about and that Mason had been her rock through it all. I let it go. I told myself it was the past, and we all have one. But something about the way she talked about him stuck with me. Too familiar. Too reverent. When Mason finally showed up, dragging in 2 giant suitcases and a charm offensive, I felt the shift instantly. Inside jokes I wasn't part of. Whispered wine sessions on the balcony while I worked late. Zoe's laughter, that deep, real kind, became a soundtrack I wasn't invited to. I started feeling like a guest in my own home. At first, I told myself I was overreacting, that I was just being territorial. Zoe had always had male friends. But this didn't feel like friendship. It felt like something else masquerading as friendship with a paper-thin disguise. Mason was charismatic, polished, and overly familiar. The kind of guy who always had a perfectly timed anecdote, always knew just when to laugh, and always made me feel like the odd man out in my own relationship. They had this rhythm, finishing each other's sentences, casually touching each other's arms, laughing a little too long at inside jokes from years ago. I'd come home and find them curled up on the couch watching some indie movie with subtitles, wine glasses in hand, half a blanket between them. And every time I brought it up, Zoe would look at me like I was accusing her of treason. "Seriously, Ethan? He's gay. Why are you being so possessive lately?" That word stuck with me, possessive. As if wanting my fiancé to prioritize our relationship made me controlling. So I backed off. I gave it space. But I started noticing other things too. Zoe's phone, suddenly always face down. Her locking herself in the second bedroom for hours. More whispered conversations I wasn't invited into. One night, I walked in on them mid-conversation, voices low, tension thick, and they jumped apart like teenagers caught by their parents. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah," Zoe said too quickly. "Just venting. Mason's having a hard time adjusting back to the city." He gave me a weak smile and excused himself. That night, Zoe climbed into bed late, smelling like red wine and eucalyptus. I wanted to ask what was going on, really going on, but something in her eyes dared me to challenge her version of events. So I played dumb. A week later, I was doing laundry when I found a crumpled piece of paper shoved behind the washing machine, a hospital bill. Folded up, smudged. My name wasn't on it, but hers was. At first, I thought it was old, but the date jumped out at me. 9 months ago. The service listed, labor and delivery. I sat on the bathroom floor with that paper in my hands, trying to understand how someone you lived with, slept beside, made future plans with could hide something that massive. Zoe had been pregnant while we were together, and she never said a word. I waited until that evening, heart pounding, and handed her the paper without a word. She looked at it, then up at me, and her face collapsed. She didn't deny it, didn't deflect. She just crumbled. "Please don't hate me," she whispered. I said nothing. I was afraid if I opened my mouth, the dam would break. She told me the baby was Mason's, that it wasn't a miscarriage, it was an adoption. Private, closed. She didn't tell anyone but Mason and her therapist, not even her parents. They'd broken up a few months before we met, and she hadn't known she was pregnant until weeks into our relationship. She said she didn't want to lose me, that she figured she could handle it quietly, that I'd never have to know. I was speechless. But it wasn't over. Because then she said, "Mason's not gay." She looked like a child caught in a lie that had gone on way too long. "He's not gay." That was just easier to say. "He's the baby's father. And we've been talking. A lot." I didn't even feel angry in that moment. Just hollow. She hadn't just lied. She'd built a whole alternate reality and invited me to live in it. Zoe's confession played on a loop in my head for days. "Mason's not gay. We've been talking. There was a baby." I gave it up. It wasn't just the lies, it was the scope of them. The way she'd hidden a pregnancy while sharing a bed with me. The way she'd watched me make wedding spreadsheets while she plotted an escape route with someone else. I moved through the next few days like a ghost. Going to work, answering Slack messages, pretending to focus, but everything felt warped. Zoe acted like she was walking on eggshells. She stopped asking me about wedding stuff. Stopped sitting next to me on the couch. But Mason? He stayed. Same jokes. Same wine. Same smirking presence that now felt unmistakably smug. I'd hear them late at night whispering in the kitchen. Once I caught Zoe sneaking into his room at 2 a.m. She jumped when she saw me in the hallway. "Just needed to talk," she said. He couldn't sleep. She said it like I was crazy for questioning it. Like it was my job to accommodate whatever emotional debris they were wading through, and just wait around until they sorted it out. That's when I knew. I wasn't in a relationship anymore. I was a placeholder. A bridge between their old life and their new one. But I wasn't going to burn the house down on my way out. So I nodded. I kept things calm. I even told her I needed time to process. She looked relieved. She thought I was folding. "Maybe I should go away with Mason for the weekend," she said one morning over coffee, her eyes wide with false innocence. "Clear my head." I said sure. Told her I thought that might be a good idea. As soon as they left Friday afternoon, I got to work. I started with the closet, carefully separating her stuff from mine. I packed her clothes in boxes, labeled everything, even wrapped her fragile items in bubble wrap. I wasn't going to give her any ammunition for drama. Then I changed the locks. It felt cold. But I wasn't angry, just done. The last thing I did before going to bed was print a copy of that hospital bill. I slid it into an envelope and addressed it to her dad. He and I had shaken hands over that wedding deposit months ago. Half the venue was paid for with his money. He deserved to know why the wedding was off. Saturday morning, I logged into the private Facebook group Zoe's mom had created for wedding updates. It was mostly cousins, aunts, and out-of-town relatives coordinating travel and gift registries. I posted a short message. "Hey everyone, I just wanted to let you know that Zoe and I will not be moving forward with the wedding. Out of respect for privacy, I won't go into details, but the decision was based on recent revelations involving past dishonesty and current relationships. I wish Zoe the best. Please reach out to her directly with any questions." I logged out and didn't look back. By Sunday evening, my phone had 37 missed calls and a dozen unread voicemails, none from Zoe. But one stood out. Mason's long-term girlfriend had seen the post. I didn't even know he had one. Turns out, neither did Zoe. Zoe called Monday morning. I let it ring out. Then she texted, "We need to talk. I'm outside." I opened the door. She stood there with her suitcase, sunglasses on despite the cloudy sky, Mason behind her, awkward and silent. "You changed the locks?" she asked, her voice tight. "I did," I said calmly. "Your stuff's in storage." I labeled everything. Mason stepped forward like he was about to say something, but I turned to him. "I'm not talking to you. This is between me and Zoe." He hung back. Zoe stepped inside, arms crossed. You embarrassed me in front of my entire family. No, Zoe, I said. You did that. I just turned the light on. She opened her mouth like she was ready to spin a new version of the truth, but I stopped her. I'm not angry. I'm not going to fight with you. I just want out. Her expression changed, frustration shifting into something that almost looked like fear. She realized she'd lost control of the narrative. You could have handled this differently, she muttered. I could have, I agreed. But then you might have just replaced me in silence. That's what you were planning, right? She didn't answer. I handed her an envelope, the receipt for the storage unit, and a list of what was packed. No insults. No jabs. Just clean, clinical boundaries. I'm not going to trash you online. I'm not going to spread anything. But I'm done playing the background character in my own life. She didn't argue. She just left. That night, I got a Facebook message from her dad. Just 2 words. Thank you. Apparently, the hospital bill had arrived that morning. And just like I suspected, they had no clue about any of it. The pregnancy, the adoption, Mason. Zoe had always been good at compartmentalizing, but eventually, every secret room gets discovered. Over the next few days, the wedding group disbanded. Zoe's mom deleted it quietly. Her cousin posted a vague, sometimes things don't work out status, which got swarmed with comments. Then came the message from Mason's girlfriend. Or ex-girlfriend, rather. She reached out through Instagram. Thank you, she wrote. I didn't know about the baby. Or Zoe. Or any of it. I'm done with him. Turns out, Mason had been maintaining 2 versions of himself. The supportive gay best friend for Zoe's family, and the deeply misunderstood boyfriend to his girlfriend of 2 years. He told her Zoe was an old friend with mental health issues who needed a place to stay. The double life collapsed in on itself. Screenshots made their way around. Family group chats exploded. And through it all, I stayed silent. No subtweets. No dramatic status updates. Just a man who walked away from a house of cards before it crushed him. After Zoe left for good, the apartment felt peaceful. Not empty, peaceful. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel lonely, just honest. I cleared out the 2nd bedroom first. No more project space. No more aromatherapy diffusers or stacks of untouched camera gear. I sold what I could, donated the rest. The air felt cleaner without her curated chaos. For a while, I kept expecting some kind of retaliation. A screaming voicemail, an angry parent at my door, some public post trying to reclaim the story. But nothing came. Because deep down, Zoe knew she'd overplayed her hand. Instead, I got the occasional trickle of secondhand updates. Zoe moved in with a friend, not Mason. I'm guessing after the fallout with his girlfriend, he didn't have much space left in his life either. Last I heard, he went back to Portland. Quietly. Zoe's parents were humiliated. They'd told friends, co-workers, extended family about the wedding. Sent save the dates. Paid thousands toward a rustic vineyard that was now just a ghost in a canceled calendar. And the bill I sent? Her dad paid it without a word, but I know he showed it to her mom. I know, because I got an email from her that just said, "You deserve better. I'm so sorry." It wasn't closure exactly, but it helped. Over the next couple months, I rebuilt slowly. Focused on work. Took solo hikes. Reconnected with friends I hadn't realized I'd been neglecting. I didn't tell most people the whole story. Just enough. The truth speaks for itself without embellishment. 6 months passed like that. No drama. No contact. Just space. And then, like life throwing me a little poetic symmetry, I ran into someone at a tech conference in Denver. She walked up during a coffee break, smiled, and said, "Hey, you're Ethan, right? I used to work with Zoe." She introduced herself as Rachel, marketing coordinator at the last startup Zoe briefly worked for before finding her calling in candle making. "I just want you to know," she said, lowering her voice. "Every single person in that office thought you were way too good for her." I blinked. "She used to show off your texts to us. How thoughtful you were. Organized. Reliable. We joked that if she ever lost you, it would be the dumbest thing she'd ever do." That hit me harder than I expected. "Anyway," Rachel said with a smile, "just wanted to say good for you. That Facebook post? Iconic." I laughed. Really laughed. For the first time in months. It wasn't about revenge. It was never about revenge. It was about standing up for myself when it counted. About walking away before the rot got any deeper. About not letting someone who couldn't be honest with herself drag me down in her storm. In the weeks after that conversation with Rachel, something in me settled. I realized how much I'd let Zoe's chaos set the tempo of my life. It was strange to reclaim my own routine, to come home, and know the only drama waiting for me was what I chose to watch on TV. Word about what happened traveled further than I expected. Mutual friends reached out quietly, some shocked, some admitting they'd always felt something was off. One of Zoe's cousins messaged to say she respected how I handled things. "You could have gone nuclear," she wrote, "but you kept your dignity. That matters." Zoe, meanwhile, made a few subtle attempts to rewrite the narrative. She updated her social media to single, posted a cryptic story about betrayal and growing from pain. But the facts were already out there. Her family's silence said everything. The wedding group never came back. The venue deposit became a cautionary tale at family gatherings, and her parents distanced themselves from the drama. As for Mason, his double life imploded. His ex-girlfriend aired screenshots of their conversations and called him out publicly, not in a messy viral post, but a pointed, clear breakup. She sent me a thank you, too. "I'm done with liars," she said. "Hope you find someone better." Occasionally, I'd get the urge to text Zoe, if only to get answers that would never satisfy me. But every time, I stopped myself. Some truths don't need closure. Some endings are their own answer. I focused on rebuilding. Started working out more, tried new recipes, even signed up for a photography class, something I'd once thought would bring me closer to Zoe, but now did just for myself. The messages from her family dwindled to nothing. There were no apologies, no requests for the full story. They'd seen enough, and I suspect, deep down, they understood the gravity of her betrayal. I deleted the last wedding file from my computer, canceled the catering, let the guest list fade. Zoe had always lived life like it was a series of auditions for a role she could never quite land. But in the end, when the mask slipped, there was no applause. Just empty seats and quiet truth. I walked out with my self-respect. I never stooped to her level, never broadcasted the gory details, never tried to win. Sometimes the cleanest victory is just surviving the storm with your integrity intact. 6 months became a year, and the sharp edges of everything that happened finally dulled. I started to understand that the real victory wasn't in exposing Zoe or Mason, or in getting a cascade of apologies. It was in not letting their chaos define the rest of my life. I started dating again, but slowly, on my own terms. I was honest about my past when asked, but never bitter. There's a freedom in having nothing left to hide and not carrying around someone else's secrets. Every so often, I'd hear Zoe's name through mutual acquaintances, mostly in passing. I learned she tried a few more side gigs and cycled through new friend groups, never quite landing anywhere for long. I sometimes wondered if she'd ever find the version of herself she always seemed to be searching for, or if she was still running from the last lie she told. But that was no longer my concern. I spent more time with friends, made my apartment my own again, even traveled for a while, something I'd put off when I was with Zoe because she never wanted to commit to anything. I realized how much I'd shrunk myself to fit inside someone else's instability and how much wider the world felt once I stepped outside of it. One night, almost a year to the day since it all fell apart, I got a message from Zoe's old coworker Rachel, the same one from the conference. She sent a photo of her new puppy and a line that made me laugh. "Hope you're still avoiding all candle-related drama." It was a simple reminder of how much lighter life can be when you let go of what doesn't serve you. I replied back, wishing her well, then closed my laptop with a feeling I hadn't felt in a long time, contentment. The real lesson didn't hit me until later. It's not always the explosive endings or the dramatic confrontations that define you. Sometimes, it's the decision to quietly reclaim your peace and leave the doors you've locked firmly closed. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. When you're no longer welcome in your own home, don't fight for a seat at the table. Just leave and trust that, eventually, the truth has a way of inviting you to a better one.